Welcome to the SailGP Skippers Show. I'm your host, Shirley Robertson, and we're here to talk everything SailGP. It's got the world absolutely buzzing, and it all gets underway next week out in the stunning waters of Sydney Harbour. And it's going to be something else. The fastest on-water racing the world has ever seen. 6 high-speed, high-tech foiling race machines, all going head-to-head. This is Sailing Redefined. And it's being led by the legendary Sir Russell Coutts, one of sailing's brightest stars, both on and off the water. Russell, it's finally here. How excited are you to be poised at the start of this incredible circuit?
I think we're all really excited. I mean, what better place to launch this than Sydney? I mean, fantastic. And super cool boats. I think in some ways this is going to change people's perception of how this sport is. It's redefining sailing, as you said, and I think once they see these super cool boats, really going fast on Sydney Harbour, I think it's going to be really exciting.
We can't wait to see them in action. I'm also joined by SailGP's 6 helmsmen. Olympic and America's Cup champion Tom Slingsby sailing for Australia. World Match Racing Tour champion Phil Robertson for China. Olympian and 4 times world champion Billy Besom for France. And fresh from a silver medal at the Olympic classes in Miami, Olympian and world champion Dylan Fletcher sailing for Great Britain. 2-time Olympic medalist and 8-time world champion Nathan Outteridge for Japan, and America's Cup champion Rome Kirby for the United States. There's a lot of sailing talent sitting here. Between all of them, there are 4 Olympic medals and 7 America's Cup victories. That's a lot of silverware. Some of the brightest talent in the sport, all eager to get going out on the water. It's such an exciting prospect. I'm not quite sure where to start, so we'll kick off things with Tom, the local boy sailing from his home nation, back in green and gold. How excited are you to be out racing these machines on the harbour?
Yeah, to race these boats on Sydney Harbour. Sydney Harbour is sort of where a lot of the fast boat sailing started, with the 18-foot skiffs back in the day, and then now we have all the super maxi fleet for the Rolex Sydney to Hobart yacht race, and now we've brought the fastest boats in the world to Sydney Harbour. It's amazing how small the harbour feels when you're sailing one of these boats. You can cross the harbour so quickly, and it's amazing for me to be representing Australia out on Sydney Harbour.
I think you can see the harbour from your house. Can you see the racecourse, Tom?
I can. I'm very fortunate.
It's been a long time in the international world of sailing since Australia were really prominent, apart from at the Olympics. Has that added, any pressure to you and the team?
I think there is a little bit of pressure there for us. We want to start this circuit on the right foot with a nice result. And for me personally, this has been a lifelong dream. I'm representing Australia with an all-Australian team, green and gold boat, the fastest boats in the world. And I want to perform on the world stage, and so do all our teams. So there is a bit of pressure, but I think we're ready for it, and we're just really eager to get racing.
Yeah, it has been a while since the Australians have...
A long time.
We're getting a bit of stick from Russell.
Here we go.
Now, let's talk boats. These boats are the fastest race boats the world has ever seen. And Nathan, you've been pretty involved in their development. Just describe for us, sum up for us these boats, the F50.
Yeah, I was involved with a lot of the sea trialling that happened in New Zealand a few months ago before coming to Sydney. And the boats are really technical to sail. There's a lot of software and control systems in the boat. And so we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that they worked really well. And, we've got a good package now. The boats are super fast, as we all talk about, but the ability and how much control you have over the boats is incredible. And you can really put the throttle down and go really fast with a lot of control and be safe.
Put them in perspective, I suppose, for anything we've seen before. What's new and fresh about it? How different is it?
Well, obviously they're foil, so they're out of the water straight away, so that gives that new element. But foiling's been around for quite a while now. But I think the fascinating thing is they just can harness so much power in such little amounts of wind. And, you can be doing over 3 times the wind speed out there very easily, and you can spin it on a dime and go off and do 40 knots the other way. So, the racing's going to be super dynamic. There's going to be big gains and losses, and the boats, are going to be very rewarding if you sail them well.
What's that like in Sydney Harbour? 3 times the wind speed. What does that feel like?
It makes the harbour feel really small. I've done a lot of sailing on Sydney Harbour growing up here as a kid. And, you know, I used to think the harbour was quite big and there was the West and the East Channel. Now you go from the East to the West Channel. From Shark Island to Bradley's takes you like 25 seconds now, where it used to take 10 minutes. So it's going to be a challenge just to keep the boats in the boundaries and avoid each other, and I think that's half the fun of it.
Now, Nathan, you're no stranger to helming a boat of this calibre, of course. But Dylan, this is a very new prospect for you, isn't it? A new skipper to boats of this size and particularly this speed. What's your first impressions of it been? Particularly talk about, I suppose, about the first time you're up and foiling. What did that feel like?
Yeah, obviously before this, the only foiling boat I'd sailed was a Moth and spent most of my time in a 49er. Yeah, that first time we popped her up on the foils in New Zealand was just incredible. You know, it was an amazing feeling and fantastic to finally get out there and ripping around.
Do you feel like you've been given the keys to your dad's Ferrari? I mean, what does that feel like? You know, the fastest race boat on the planet and you're in charge.
Yeah, it was amazing to get here out to Sydney and see our boat, get the keys, as you say, you know, get out on the water and start ripping around. And I've never been to Sydney before, so to finally be here racing in one of the most amazing sailing locations in the world with these boats is just, you know, amazing. And today, 6 boats on the water, it's going to really show what it's going to be like.
It's been fantastic watching you train on the harbour. And I wonder, Russell, if you're ever tempted, you know, to get your helmet on and your wetsuit and give it a go. I mean, you've excelled throughout this sport.
You're kidding me, right?
Oh, mate, show us how it's done.
Look at that. Yeah, I tell you what, there'd be some carnage.
I mean, but joking aside, when you look at the lineup on the sofa, they're pretty young guys in our sport.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I think it is a young man's game these days, or a young person's game, and you know, no reason why a top female athlete couldn't come and helm one of these boats. But I think, you know, the reaction time's really important, and so, you know, obviously age doesn't help that.
Well, these boats themselves are what's called one design. That means all 6 of them are exactly the same. And Dylan, you're heavily involved in one of the design worlds of Olympic sailing. You know, all the boats are exactly the same in the 49er class. What does that whole aspect of one design bring to the racing? And, you know, what can we expect that to add to what we see?
Yeah, obviously it's you know, quite unique to having a big boat like this where they are all, you know, exactly the same, and it really just brings about the sailor's skills. You know, there's no hiding behind any walls. There's not, you know, oh, our kit's not as good as yours. It is purely down to sailor skill and trying to extract everything out of the equipment. And I think that's something that's going to make this exciting and, you know, really push us all to, you know, new limits.
And while we're talking boats, Russell, what changes have been made to make it, you know, more watchable for the audience?
Well, this is now much more understandable for a non-sailor. I think this is going to bring not only, you know, the avid sailing fans to watch it, but it's going to bring in the general sports fans, perhaps the racing fans, because they can understand the way we produce the pictures these days. They can really understand who's ahead, who's behind, and also the data coming off the boat, the technology coming off the boat. They can get an idea of what these sailors are doing different to each other and really drill into that, and you know, just the camera angles on board the boats. I think drones will change it. The fact that we can film these boats from drones close up, you're going to see the close crosses, you know, the converging speeds. If the boats are doing, you know, 40 knots, you know, the converging speeds are huge. So, you know, bringing all that action in and allowing the fan a real up-close and personal look at it, I think it's a game changer.
I'm going to ask Nathan, you know, the boats are all the same and there's endless data coming off them that we can all see, but, you know, how much can you change or alter the settings? How differently can you sail them? You know, what is going to make the difference?
There's lots of things that you can adjust in the boat. So we have in the system these things called tunable parameters. So you can control how fast the wing moves, whether it's the twist or the camber. You go into the little computer in the back of the boat and you can increase the speed or decrease the speed. The same for the jib functions and same for a lot of the foil and the flight control functions. So yes, they're all the same, but there's, you know, lots of options to control the boat. And, you know, before we started our little chat here now, everyone was asking who was using what settings today. And the beauty of the way that the whole event's set up, you can look at the boat after sailing, and I can go and look at what Tom was using today in his boat and say, okay, he was jibing better than me, so I'm going to study his data to try and do a better job tomorrow. And I'm sure that as we go through more and more racing, people are just going to keep analysing each other. We've got coaches who are looking at that, and you'll have fans looking at that too. And it's really interesting that way.
The steering wheels are kind of cool. They're almost like looking at a racing car.
It's like a Formula One wheel. Yeah.
Formula One wheel where you've got, 6 buttons there for different functions, and the twist grips which control the flight.
Yeah, you've got the flight control on the outside of the wheel, and then you've got all the different settings in the hub. And probably there's even more happening further forward where we have the flight controller, or on our boat we call him the flight attendant. We're asking him to try and do things for us all the time. And he's there, he's always just tweaking different settings.
Like that.
Water, snacks, all that sort of
I was actually asking today if they could put a little button on so I could call my flight attendant.
like electric shock.
Yeah.
In terms of features, I like the crash bar, I mean, that would have been handy in my day, that's
Crash coots.
I mean, Nathan, you have, out of everyone, the most experience of sailing this type of boat, of helming this type of boat. I mean, how much of an advantage is that? I mean, how confident do you feel?
I wouldn't say I'm confident because we've got a great lineup of people here and teams and a lot of experience amongst all the teams. But, there's a bit of confidence in the experience that I've had driving these boats and, being involved in a lot of the development of how the boats got to where they are today means that you can leapfrog a lot of the initial learning. But I'm pretty confident these guys will work it out very quickly, and by the time we start racing, it's going to be tight.
Oh, that's the PR answer. He told me privately that he's confident.
I've talked to the other guys. We're going to chain his boat to the dock for the next week while we all go training.
No more practice.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been watching you practice in the harbour, and it looks fast. Perhaps, Rome, talk to me about the speeds these machines can do, and I suppose particularly perhaps the closing speeds when you start racing.
Yeah, these boats can definitely, they get upwards of 50 knots right now. So I don't think anyone in the fleet's seen 50 knots yet, but I'm sure it's not far off. So the closing speeds for sure, pretty fast. We had a little moment today with the French, and we didn't quite see them, and we had it we missed them probably by a few feet. So happens pretty quick. The speed of the game's pretty fast.
Those US-French relationships are so good.
I mean, you're laughing about it now, but there's obviously, inherent dangers of any machines going at 50 miles an hour towards each other. Let's talk a little bit about safety and what precautions and what training has been done. Phil?
Yeah, well, look, it's no joke. The boats go extremely fast, and obviously with speed comes a lot of danger, and that's a priority now, is making sure the boats are safe and the crews are safe on board. So we've actually all spent 2 days in different parts of the world doing a safety course, you could say. Quite important, our flight attendants took that course.
We've got some footage of that, Phil. I mean, just talk us through what's happening and what you did on that course.
Yeah, well, basically we had quite a few professional divers with us, teaching us effectively how to be calm underwater if, worst case scenario, the boat goes upside down and you're stuck. So on board we wear sort of an impact vest, and on that vest is a air tank as well to give us a bit of air. It gives us about 1 minute if we're panicking and 3 minutes if we can calm ourselves down. So that was probably the main focus of the course, was just to teach us how to relax underwater, and it's very, very beneficial, that's for sure, and how to get out if we're stuck. And alongside that, we've got divers on our ribs ready to jump in the water and get us out of it. All goes a bit pear-shaped.
I did that course with some of you. I mean, the word relaxed does not come into it. I mean, Russell, let's talk a little bit about safety, because I know it's important to you. I mean, what changes have you made on the boat to ensure the safety of the guys?
Well, yeah, the design team's been, there's a common design team with this, and they've been very focused on the safety aspects. But one of the things that they've introduced this time is they're all harnessed on. So if they did have a collision with another boat, or for example, pitch poled it, which is when the boat, turns front over in a capsize, they're at least, locked onto the boat at that point and not going to go flying through the air and hit something. You know, perhaps the back of the dagger boards, which is really a knife edge. So, you know, that was an innovation that we've brought in. But there's lots of little details like that have gone on. There's been a tremendous amount of planning with the safety just to try and make sure that we're as safe as possible and evolve it, get better and better.
Well, one man who's not afraid to sail fast is Billy Besom from France. And we're used to seeing you charging around the racecourse in the foiling Olympic class. You know, how excited are you, Billy, to be part of this?
Yeah, I'm completely excited about this boat because it's going very fast and I love that. I love the speed and everybody over there loved that too. But yes, the harbour is very small for this boat, and we are very happy to be here on this harbour with this boat.
I mean, what's it like doing, you know, 40, 50 miles an hour, holding on to that wheel? You know, what does that feel like?
Well, I feel quickly a bit, and you know, you don't want to be a large movement with the wheel, so you can just go straight and just go a bit slowly with the sitting of the board. So we go slowly, but your heart is completely done.
You're getting used to the pace, Billy.
For sure.
Well, of course, a big aspect of SailGP is nation versus nation out there. And Billy, you're sailing in the red, white and blue, the tricolour of France. What does that mean, you know, to be sailing in this competition for your country?
Yeah, well, I am, and our team was very proud about that, because it's a big community for each team, I think, for a nationality to represent her nationality. So it's very important, and I think this boat is going to be very great for movement for that. So we're going to be confident about that.
I know you've brought with you on your team as flight controller Marie Rieu. She's your partner in the Olympic boat. You know, why did you bring Marie? And I suppose, you know, I'm delighted that we have a woman on the circuit. You know, how's she getting on with it all?
Yeah, you know, for me, I chose Marie because it's my crew. But you know, for me, it's not a woman or a man. It's just a sailor, and she do a great job on board. So. For me, it's over, you know. It's not like a woman or the guys. She's make it a beautiful job now. She's working a lot because we control the machine with the joystick, so so she learned a lot about that.
I mean, perhaps a question to all of you. You know, how would you describe that relationship between, you know, the flight controller and the person that's steering the boat? I mean, to me, it's like driving a car and someone else is pressing the clutch. You know, how does that work, and how crucial is that relationship?
It's super crucial. You know, that back three people on the boat, you got one person driving the boat, another person controlling the power source of the wing, and then the flight controller is involved in flying the boat. And we have our boat set up so that I'm flying the boat on the twist grips at the back. But whenever you do a manoeuvre, all three of you have to be very in sync with who's pushing what button when to keep it in the air. And it's not easy. Sometimes we make it look really easy, but it's very difficult to do, and it takes a lot of time to get that relationship between those three people.
I think there's a few modifications planned with that flight control system too, isn't there? When it first got introduced, it clearly needs some work. So I think over the next months they're bringing in some more changes. So I think it's really hard. What I hear is it's really hard to use right now.
What I'm interested to know is what happens when the three of you aren't in sync. Tommy, what happens then? What's that like?
Yeah, communication is so important, and we've got onboard comms units, and we speak about as loud as this, and we have all this noise around us. But if the comms unit doesn't work and someone doesn't hear one of your instructions, it's pretty bad. You get wet. And you get wet fast. It's you crash the boat into the water, and you try not to damage the boat or damage the people.
I think we saw you slowly cowering down behind the wheel on the video?
I do that. The faster I go, the lower I get. It's a bad habit. But everyone,
I don't blame you.
There's a few guys in the boat who face backwards, and they know if I'm in control. If I'm in control, I stand up. If I'm not in control, I start crouching lower and lower, and so they start holding on because they know something's about to happen.
You don't want to spoil your hairdo.
No, exactly. It's so important.
Now, we've already heard Russell say that this is a young man's game. And Rome, you have assembled the youngest team here. Is that going to be your winning strategy?
We got a long way to go. We've got a lot to learn, but we have an extremely talented group of young guys. So I think we're pretty excited to represent our country, and we got a lot to learn from these other guys. So we're just taking it day by day.
What's it like, on board with your mates doing 50 knots? What's that like?
Oh, it's a blast. The guys are pretty enthusiastic. They're pretty fired up. They're definitely not jaded. I think a few of us who have sailed these boats, you can kind of get a little complacent and, it becomes normal. But these boats are so fast now with, all the new technology. So it's a blast.
I'm very excited to see what you can do. Now, we've mentioned Olympic medals and we've mentioned America's Cup wins. But Phil Robertson, here's a man you don't want to be messing with out on the water. Match race world champion, and that's the really aggressive man-on-man aspect of our sport. So for me, I suppose that makes you the master tactician out there. How much is that kind of sailing going to come into play here?
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I guess it could be a weakness as well, and it's probably something over the years I've had to try and tune out of my system a little bit, because it's quite easy just to, coming from quite a heavy match racing background, to not focusing on one boat but focusing on the others. So quite often we'd just focus on the boat in front of us and go after them and let a few past us. So it's never easy. It's very different having 6 boats on the racetrack, and it's probably something that I've got experience with as well, coming from the Extreme Sailing Series, and similar style on a very tight, short race course and fairly fast boats for the size of the course. And I think we've got a bit of experience around, and hopefully that plays into our hands a little bit.
I can't wait to see 6 boats on that first start line. And I know you guys, you feel the same. How competitive, Phil, do you think it's going to be? Yeah,
look, the first time I think we all 6 of us line up on that line, it's going to be a spectacle, that's for sure. Speaking to all of them, we're all packing ourselves. We don't really know what to expect.
Oh, come on, mate.
Okay, so
apart from Nathan.
We never said that.
Turn it up, eh? But you look here, you've got 6 extremely competitive human beings, and once that first gun goes, I don't know if we're all going to have a beer together ever again. It's going to be all on. We're all mates right now, but I know what's going to happen. You've seen it before, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's punch-ups in the yard afterwards as well. So
I've got to get that on film.
Yeah. I'll keep the film rolling.
I mean, the start in the first leg is everything. Win the start, you're golden. I mean, what's that going to be like, that fight, Tom, for the best position?
Yeah, as we've found in these types of boats, the start is the most important part of the race. If you get the best start, you lead to the first mark, you have no one in front of you and no one really blocking you. We've found in these types of boats that if you get caught in the pack in the middle of the fleet, everyone's trying to slow each other down and drag each other back. It's very much like F1. Once that guy, if he nails pole position and gets around the corner first, he's hard to catch, and it's going to be very similar in these boats. And I know we're not going to give an inch. If we're caught in the pack, we're going to be fighting as hard as anyone to slow the other boats around and us get past. So it's going to be super important to get off the line clean and to mark 1 in good shape.
All right, well, I know right now it's hard to think past Sydney, but looking forward, we've got 5 events on this year's calendar. But it's not all just about the silverware. There's the little matter of the prize purse as well. And at a cool $1 million, it's going to get pretty competitive. Rome, how big a deal is that prize purse?
Oh, I don't think there's anyone here that doesn't want to win $1 million. I think everyone on each team wants to win. At least for us on our team, I think we're taking it one race at a time. and just trying to progress. But the prize money is a big part. It's a big motivator, and I think everyone's pretty excited about it at the end of the year.
What about you, Dylan? Has there been any chat in the boat about what you do with the winnings?
Yeah, Stu's, Northern lad, he's pretty vocal on a bit of cash in the bank, and it's certainly a very big motivator for him.
Be nice. I hope we get invited to the party.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be room for one more.
SailGP covering all the parties.
All right, well, maybe the toughest question. Who's feeling confident to take that $1 million purse home?
Nathan.
Based on what?
Just your posture, mate.
Nathan?
It's a long way to go. We haven't even done a race yet. How can you say he's going to win?
There is a long way to go, but we have a lot to look forward to. SailGP is getting underway this February, the 15th and 16th, out in Sydney Harbour. The guys can't wait to get racing, and I can't wait to see the action. It's going to be quite the spectacle, and tickets are still available at sailgp.com Sydney. Well, once the action from Sydney's over with, of course, we move on to San Francisco and New York in the US, then Cowes in England, before the final in Marseille, France. And you can find details of all those dates, plus information on when and how to watch all the action online at sailgp.com. And of course, if you're following a team or one of our skippers here watching the broadcast, or you're lucky enough to be watching us live out on the harbour, get involved on social media. We're #SailGP. We'll see you out there. Thanks for watching.